Good morning for me in the United States, and good evening or early evening for Kieran Bew, our next guest. You know him as Bill on Warrior, one of my truly favorite shows. I am not kidding. You know, I keep talking about it, and I want to have everybody on so we can discuss the show. I won season three. We signed the petition. I won season three and four and five and six and so on. So please welcome to the program, Kieran Bew.
Hello, thank you very much.
Oh, it's such a pleasure, and I'm inviting you right before this season ends, right before 10 comes out in the United States tomorrow.
Yeah.
So when Joanna and Perry are on next week, I'll be able to talk to them about it. But with you, I am I've trained myself over the last number of hours not to ask any questions about 10 because I don't want to put you in a spot, and I don't want to know. I want to see it for myself.
Oh,
So,
cool.
yeah, but yeah, it's coming out. I know everybody's bummed that the season is ending, and we don't know what's going to happen other than it's going to go on HBO Max, and hopefully it'll reach a wider audience, and you guys get to do it again.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That would be lovely. We'd love that.
yeah, and I kind of the way that I'm making myself feel better by thinking of what happened with Cobra Kai. Cobra Kai, I love the show as well. It it came out, it did decently, and it had its own kind of audience that loved it on YouTube. But then it blew up once Netflix took it. So
I don't know the history of Cobra Kai. So quickly, like, how long was it around on YouTube before they must have let it go before Netflix swooped in? What happened there?
I think it was about a couple of years almost before Netflix kind of took over. And then Netflix, I think they even approved season 3 right away. Right. I need to double check on kind of the steps, but it blew up. It was number one on Netflix, and it ran for I think it was number one for weeks, if not months. So it was huge, and everybody blew up. Like in terms of interview requests, I just remember that. You could talk to people before Netflix. You could not get anybody on after Netflix.
Wow.
I got a chance
Fancy.
to speak. I got a chance to speak to one of the actors on the show, wonderful Hannah Keppel, who plays Moon in Cobra Kai, and she was fantastic. But again, Netflix is you can't ask these questions, you can't ask these questions. You can only go here. It's a very very specific.
Well, you can ask me whatever you like. I mean, I might not answer it, but you can ask me whatever you like. I mean, this is just my kitchen, and my team. They don't care.
Yeah. No, it's what I love about I'm going to call you the Warrior family, because you guys really kind of act like a family. You're all really tight, and anytime I talk to one of you, it's that same feeling of we truly enjoyed making it, and we became a family. We're still in touch, even though I think you came back from shooting in May. So it's been.
I did, yeah. May last year, May 2019, I came back, and a lot of the cast left, and we left the final team to shoot episode 6.
Yeah,
it was the standalone that Dustin Nugent directed.
Yep.
And we did the same in season 1 as well. We all left, and then they shot episode 5, which was the Western standalone, which we all loved watching, and we were all sort of envious as castmates that we weren't allowed to be part of that one, because it was so much fun. And I think those two, up until episode 9, those seem to have been fan favorites, but episode 9 seems to have smashed that out the water.
Oh my god, episode 9 was intense. It's a nonstop ride. I felt like I was on some sort of a ride where you strap yourself in and it just doesn't end. I don't know. I don't remember taking a breath from the beginning to the end.
Yeah, me too. It's funny because by the time we got the screeners, which I think was about in end of August or something, I genuinely forgotten what we filmed, and it mainly because the final 4 episodes, the schedule and the budget that we had, such as it was that we had to shoot all 4 episodes at the same time. So you see 7, 8, 9, and 10.
Yeah.
We were all overlapping each other. Everyone was in all the time. All of the crew were just running between sets. We have 2 main sets which are doing Normally 2 episodes get filmed at the same time and one director will do that. So we had 2 permanent crews, but then we also had a splinter crew, which was Brett Chan and his team doing the action, which in itself splintered too, because they also had to prep the next fights. So we sort of had, I mean, we said we did, they call it double banking, but I used to call it quadruple banking because there were at least 4 sets. There were really 5. And, you know, I don't know if anyone's talked about Richard Sharkey, who was our line producer, who's a very experienced guy. He's made a lot of fantastic work. Him and Brad Calipkay did an incredible job. And of course the production team, but they did an incredible job of scheduling and working it out. I don't really know how they did it. And everybody really needed a long holiday after it. I mean, I watching it was such a pleasure for me because there's so much obviously I'm not involved in, but I knew what it had taken to make the drama. And there are moments, you know, I saw a fan was like saying, "Oh, there's not as much action in this episode. That was a bit of a shame." I was like, "Dude, we just wait." That we couldn't fit any more in. There's no way we could have squeezed any more in. If we had a little more time, probably everybody would love to. But yeah, it was an incredible achievement.
Yeah, and it really took you on an emotional gamut, you know, with Jacob. It's so painful to watch that whole thing. It was traumatic, and then seeing everything develop and watching this hurricane blow through, it was ridiculous.
So, can I ask you a question?
Yeah, please.
So, in relation to seeing that painful storyline of Jacob, who did you feel was most responsible for the plight of Jacob? Like, who did you feel? Because people connect to different characters in the show and say it's that person's fault. It's that, and I just want to know what you think.
You know what? So what I think, and again, there's a lot of discussion on Facebook.
That's what's great about it. It's subjective. So
what I personally feel is that God, I'm so sorry, I forgot the name of the actress who plays her beautifully, the Penelope's sister.
Sophie, Celine Bookends, who's a wonderful Belgian actress.
Yeah, she's fantastic. I really enjoyed her acting performance. But her addition threw everything into misalignment. You know, you can trace every step that she did that caused the mayor to be killed, caused the Jacob to be killed. Like she, and I thought it was brilliant writing because just that one, cog in the wheel set the whole thing. So if I were to truly say who's responsible, it would be her.
Yeah. Do you think that's like the naivety of youth?
Yeah, well,
I don't feel like she's Machiavelli. I mean, I think she's.
No. Yeah.
What do you think?
I think she's. I don't think she's a bad person. I think there is some kind of rebellious young nature in her, where she's trying to find herself, and then we, as people, we get defensive when things go against the way that we want them to go, and sometimes we just throw caution into the wind, and that's what happens. And I thought I'm gonna make my kids watch it. Because
how old are your kids?
So, well, my son is 11 and my daughter is 15. So they're not too young.
Parental guidance.
They're not. Well, yeah, there are some scenes I'll have some issues with, but the scene. Oh my God, the scene that the most heartbreaking scene for me, by the way, and we talked about it on your Instagram Live, was when it was Bill and Bill's son had a knife to his throat with a Fong Hai.
Yeah.
That, oh my God, that gutted me. I knew something was happening. I didn't know if Lee was about to get killed and this was his goodbye. I didn't know because as they were, and this is why the cinematography was so perfect, because you knew that something awful is about to happen and you just didn't know what. Yeah. And when Lee walked out, I thought, okay, well, that's probably the last time we see Lee because something bad is about to happen. I was not prepared at all for Bill's son to almost get killed. That as a parent of a son, oh my God, that did a number with me, and I don't remember if I could sleep well that night.
Yeah, it's something that I had a little taste of in season 1 when Jack Damon, the debt collector who works for the Fung Hai, comes to my house. I walk in, it's the beginning of episode 6, I think, and I walk in my own front door, having been in an explosion, and he's holding my baby daughter. And I remember talking about that with David Petrarca, the director, about how I might come into that scene and how I might react. Yeah. And I was just like, all I can see is a man has my baby. And then ultimately when you get to the end of the episode and Dylan, Leary says to me, you're going to have to deal with this, Bill. And Bill beats him to death. Like, you know, Bill's not a well guy. He's got a lot of trauma. He's been through a lot prior to whatever goes on in the show. He's been a war veteran and he's been a cop for a long time. Yeah. And the idea of once he starts, he the rage and the lack of control and the fear of a guy who knows that the man that's holding his child could kill it. Yeah. I said, he can't cope with it. It's too much. And so the savagery of that last bit in episode 6, it's very ugly. I'm not saying it's a good thing. I'm just saying, like, playing it as an actor, I was like, he's not well. No. And that broke him. So to have this moment where Ethan also gets put in danger in that way, we talked a lot about it because the way it was written, it was like I turn around and I freeze. And we were talking physically about the house and Lee coming up behind me, and how would it be that Lee would get in the house before me? And we were all having a debate about it, the stunt crew and everybody, about, well, wouldn't you do this and wouldn't you do that? And we were like, well, you sort of think you know what you'd be able to do, and you think you know what you'd be able to achieve, but Bill is so lucky that Lee comes back for his book, and Bill is really lucky that Lee comes for dinner. But then again, I was saying before that when Bill tells the Fung Hai leader Zing to go off F himself, he knows that's a bad thing to do. He knows he's banking on he's hoping that the weight of the Chinatown squad, the police force, his title is going to be enough that the Fung Hai are going to come after him. But really deep down, he knows it's not enough. And the first thing he does is he goes to the police station and invites Lee to dinner.
Yeah. Oh, I missed that part. Okay, that makes sense.
I mean, he's got Lee coming round because he feels guilty about the fact he got beat up and now he's on drugs and he's a mess, and he came in all chipper, wanting to tell the truth, a nice, clean, squeaky clean guy. And since he's been hanging out with Bill, he's gone down the toilet. And Bill does feel responsible, like he's a good guy. But Bill also is a guy who's trying to survive and manipulate. And he'd much rather have Lee sitting at his dinner table where he's not telling any of Bill's lies to anyone. Yeah. And also, it's another body that's going to protect his family.
Yeah, it's Bill's a complex character, and I really enjoyed him. And again, he's an intense guy. So the first conversation from the Warrior family I had was with Marie-Elaine Alas, who was wonderful. And I asked her about you, and I asked her about my goodness, Dean, who plays Leary. And Dean is, oh my God, the character of Leary is ridiculously intense, like to the point where you look in those eyes and you just want to say, I am sorry, I'm gonna do that. Yeah. So I asked her about you guys. She's like, no, they're both teddy bears. And I was
that's because we drug Dean. That's because we drug him. We have to keep a sandwich nearby just to calm him. No, I'm joking, of course. He's lovely.
I don't know. I mean, I've watched some of Dean's lives, and I mean, he seems like he has a bit of an edge to him as a person. Where I don't know.
He's really a good actor. No, he does that intensity very well. I mean, that's what's called for him, and he can do that. Yeah. He can turn it on. Dean actually comes from north of England, not far from where I come from. It's really nice to hear a familiar accent, you know. And Dean's brothers and his mum came and hung out with us in Cape Town a bit as well. They're very close, and he's a lovely guy. But yes, the intensity is quite present. And actually doing scenes with Dean as Bill, with him as Leary, that's really helpful. Because for me, playing Bill, like when he gives me that intensity, it's really great for me to like squirm around it or lie to it and like watch him and see what he does and like play with him, because he will be intense and I know he's going to bring that intensity and he's going to try and intimidate me, and that's a tactic that Bill uses on other people, but he can't use it on Leary. And so for me, I love doing scenes with Dean. All my scenes with Dean were really fun.
And for me, it was again kind of doing my prep on you. I went straight to your demo reel, and I wanted to watch it. And people, if you think episode 9 is intense, you need to watch the demo reel of Kieran's. The demo reel, like, you're playing really intense characters. There were a few that were not, but very often it's really intense characters where, like, that 4-minute or so demo reel, I actually felt like, oh my God, there is a lot of power and intensity in there as an actor. And the cool byproduct of that was me as an actor, because there are two things, right? You kind of understand who you are as an actor if you want to work with somebody like that, or you don't. Because do you think that your acting chops are good enough in order to be in a scene with somebody or not? And when I walked away from watching that, I'm like, yeah, I want to be in a scene with Kieran because I want to see what I can do during it. So it made me as an actor feel really good. But then I saw, your Instagram lives, and I see how you are as a person, and you're how kind of Maria described you. You're a teddy bear. You're really, you're a nice, kind of down to earth guy. How and we'll come back to Warrior, guys. Everybody, I have some questions that I know, but
maybe I'm just acting.
But how do you bring so much intensity? Because again, from what I've seen of you, which is limited to 2 or whatever hours, you seem like a really kind of mellow dude. Is it easy to bring out that intensity? Is it hard? What do you find?
I think it's really easy at times, and other times it feels really hard, but it really helps having crazy eyes. Crazy eyes. I've watched an awful lot of films. I've watched an awful lot of TV. I come from a really fantastic, supportive family who just did loads of sport, and I have had a really, really fantastic life. So I can't say that any intensity that I put into my acting has necessarily come from, a dark place or anything. I've had some pretty intense things happen to me in my life. I'm a human being, and I feel quite a lot. I think a lot of actors or people that gravitate towards acting have very people might say they are sensitive or melodramatic or over emotional. I mean, my dad said to me, maybe your talent is that you feel things in an extreme way, and then being able to channel that into doing the job. Maybe that's why you can do good at that job, and you can do that job. Of course, I have all the self-doubt of every other actor, where I constantly think, oh God, I'm not sure I can do it at all. And that's just a sort of a distracting kind of mental sort of thing that seems to happen to almost everybody. I spoke to an old actor years ago about self-doubt and in playing certain things, and the challenge of playing certain things, and they just said to me, look, these are old British actors who've all got these ridiculous voices. And I remember saying to them, when do we get our voices? When do we turn into like old hounds from the theatre? Like guys that had worked with Laurence Olivier and the greats, like saying to them, like, what do I do about this? And they said, all the really good people I know have it, had it, struggle with it. It's part of being an actor, and that's what's there. So intensity or whatever you're seeing that you say is intense, I think is just commitment to what's being asked of in the script. And honestly, I fight to make everything as natural as possible. And if you've got really extreme things to do, that's really hard. I did a play years ago. I did Richard II years ago at the Old Vic, and I played Exton, who is a murderer who murders Richard. And he murders Richard, and then he has this a couplet where he talks about regretting the thing he's done. And I said to this really old actor, Peter Eyre, I said, I feel really fake when I'm doing this, because it's this big declaiming moment just as he's murdered him. Mm-hmm. And the play's about Richard. It's not about the guy Exton who murdered him, but he has this moment of doubt. And he just said, it's a big idea, isn't it? It's a big idea. He said, you've just got to commit to it. Just got to commit to it. And again, that felt vague, but it also felt supportive. And I don't know. All the stuff that you're referring to, I have to say it was fun. It was really fun.
Yeah.
Roundabout answer, sorry.
No. That's the reality, right? That's the truthful answer, and that's what I want. Yeah, self-doubt. I heard you talking about auditions, and that's kind of the way that I view auditions as well. It's not the rejection; it's that void from which you never hear anything.
Yes. Yes. There was a push, like in the last year or so, year and a half, for casting directors to get back to actors. There was a sort of thing on social media saying, could people commit to it? And certain casting directors did so, say, we're going to commit to giving you a yes or a no, or at least a feedback or anything. Over the years, I've been an actor, and I started auditioning in 2001. Mm-hmm. And I started working in 2001. Since then to now, the amount of time you have to prep has completely shrunk. The self-taping didn't exist then. That's a huge different thing. That's a huge strain on your personal life and your family, because it's normally people's wives or partners or family members who are reading in with you. It's not like a friend who's an actor, particularly in lockdown. Yeah,
my daughter.
God, I have developed a certain amount of thick skin and a certain amount of knowledge about when I do something. I try and prepare for this is including going in a room, prepare to enjoy the audition for when I'm doing it, for just what it is, because that might be the only, it's more probable that will be the only time I get to play this character than not. You're not going to get most jobs you go for.
Yep. So
at least try and enjoy it. Everyone's going to feel nervous. Everybody feels nervous. Just try and have fun if you can. Just try and enjoy it, and then try and have something to do afterwards, and move away from it gently. But you know what? Every 6 months or every 9 months or a year, I have one that it feels really painful that I don't get. And for me, when I get something coming in, I instantly get excited and I start working, and then I'm always slightly frightened I'm going to fall in love with it and I'm not going to get to do it. And as for casting directors getting back to us, they are very, very, very busy too. And I understand completely for them why it's an overwhelming thing to get back to actors. I don't really know what the solution is to the audition kind of void. I mean, I joke about it and say it's like a black well that you throw things into and then you wait to listen, and you feel like you're losing yourself into it. But that's our thing to take care of, I think.
The only thing that I can think of is that because, and oftentimes it's not really the casting directors that are even watching your audition, it's the associates. And
maybe I would say maybe to that. And the reason I would say that is because you might be right, and you might have information I don't have. But sitting alone in my kitchen, when I send that tape in, I've got no idea. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
And for my mental health and my own sake, because sometimes I've sent the tape in and I'll send it in on whatever platform, and sometimes people watch it and you can actually check and you can see the views ticking around, and like, oh my God, they watched it 3 times, they watched it 6 times, they watched it 20 times. Sometimes they don't, they download it. and you have no idea how many times they watch it or who watches it, and it can drive you mad if you really,
But for us, and again, you're in the UK, so it may be different. But for us, Actors Access is a lot of what we do. And on Actors Access, you just submit via the EcoCast. You have no way of checking how many times it's been viewed, who did it. So it's one of those things. And they specifically tell us, don't put any auditions on Vimeo, don't put it on YouTube.
Okay.
Private, don't put it. Especially kind of the bigger shows where you're getting the sides with your name on it. They specifically tell you, don't send it to anyone. It needs to be just uploaded to EcoCast and then you're done.
Password protected multiple times.
Yep.
NDAs and all that. Yeah. I don't know.
It's awful.
But it's all exciting. That's the thing. I try not to allow all the other things around just to doing the acting. Like almost everything, where it's filmed, the job, whatever you think the cast might be, or the money, or anything like that. I try to separate it and just go, I'm going to have fun, because otherwise it can really chew me up.
Yeah,
I've been doing it nearly 20 years, and it's still like a sort of weird, painful Tai Chi exercise or something, or what I mean.
It's true. I remember I was auditioning for, this is kind of my biggest audition before the one that I just had for another big show. I can tell you off air, but so I had an audition for a show. I did not get it, but it was a recurring guest star on an HBO series with Ethan Hawke, and I'm doing the audition, and I'm kind of I'm getting into the character, and I go into a different place. I dress the part. I kind of I do my work that makes me feel the most as the character. Then I submit it, and then it hits me saying, you understand that if you get this, you haven't even gotten co-star roles yet, and you're about to maybe get a recurring guest star on an HBO series where you're going to be acting with Ethan Hawke. Are you good enough? And like all of these doubts and all of these things, like there's a part of you that's exceptionally excited because that can be a huge thing for your career. There is a part of you that wonders if you're good enough as an actor to be in a guest star role with Ethan Hawke. There is another part that's excited about being in a scene with Ethan Hawke, acting, like all of that stuff. And I just, after a while, I had to put it away and say, okay, if it happens, I'll deal with it then. I can't spend my energy on all of this stuff. It's just bad.
It's tiring. It's tiring.
It is. You mentioned sports, and that's another thing that I found really cool about you, is that your first sport and my first sport are the same.
Really?
We did different. I did fencing when I was a kid. That was my first sport. Same with you. Now I did rapier. So that was mine. You did the epi, right? Epi?
I was an epist.
That was my first love. You I don't know why you got into fencing. I got into fencing. I remember distinctly why I got into fencing, or specifically, I got into fencing because I watched Three Musketeers, and I said I want to do that. I want to be a D'Artagnan. And then the fencing coach came by my school, and that was it. That was my.
My family were all swimmers.
Okay.
So as a kid, we would train for every single night after school. I started fencing when I was 9, but by then I'd already been a swimmer for, I don't know. I think I started when I was 2, just in basic classes, but because my older siblings all went, I'd have to check with my parents, but we were just always in a swimming pool, always at a gala, always training, always thinking of chlorine. I mean, the chlorine in the pool dyed my hair blonde. I had blonde hair as a kid and dark roots, which was apparently very fashionable at the time, but it wasn't actually a hair style. It was because I was spending all my time in over chlorinated pools. But I started fencing because I switched schools when I was about 9, and I was in a class, and some of the kids had said, some of the lads in the class who I was making new friends with said, "Oh, we're going to go fencing. We're going to go to this new fencing club in town." So I sort of said, "Look, we could be like the Three Musketeers," because they were sort of Well, we went along and they didn't come back and I stayed. And I had this obsession with it wasn't really, it was sort of any kind of sword thing. And it, particularly the Three Musketeers with Oliver Reed, I got, there's a moment when he gets his cape caught in this wheel, and it's really, really dark and macabre. And that bit really, obviously kind of resonated with me as a really dark, brooding movie moment. And it is a very dark moment in the movie. And there's a really comic moment straight after where some people jump out of a tree. But it had actually seared on me, actually, as a kid. I used to think about that quite a lot. Is that trauma? I don't know. I think it's enjoying a movie. But I went fencing anyway. I was quite good at it, and I stuck it out, and my dad encouraged me and kept me going. And before I knew it, because I competed in swimming, I knew that when I fenced in fencing, I started winning medals, and I won the Northeast region. I think was like the first or second competition I ever did, and I knew how big from swimming that was and how hard it was in swimming. And I guess I was like, well, it's fencing then. And I went to school. I remember going to school and lying to the kids at school and being like, yeah, we did like bed sheet sword fighting, and we fought with 2 swords, and that was rubbish. That was just what I wanted to do. So actually, eventually I did. I went to Lambda, to drama school in London for 3 years, and I learned to fight with bed sheets and swords and whips and axes and chains and poles and anything. We used to choreograph fights, for all kinds of plays, and you get taught. And actually, that's probably when I got one of my best acting lessons, which was our coach, teacher, Jonathan Waller. He used to have this phrase. You say, you got to sell the illusion. You got to sell the illusion, of wherever the hit is, and you got to hide the nap and the technicality. That all translates. People say it doesn't translate to film and TV. Of course it does. It translates to where the camera is and pulling, or put a punch in any kind of action, not just high-end kung fu in our show. I've done tons of stuff where just selling the illusion and understanding proximity to your audience it is so important. And actually, so the sports stuff really, really helped. It really helped.
And before we jump into Warrior again, so in swimming, what's your favorite stroke?
It used to change quite a lot. I used to quite like backstroke, but as I was sort of getting stronger in my teen years and getting better and really starting to develop, butterfly was becoming, because it was so much fun. It's just that it's so aerobic and tough. But I think about it now, we used to do 1,000-meter warm-ups when we were kids. That was our warm-up, and that was normal. That was just normal. That was every night, as you do. Competitive swimmers, anybody who's a competitive swimmer would like, yep. And now I probably couldn't do half of that.
My dad always swam butterfly. He's an ex-Navy guy, and he loves butterfly. And as a kid, I tried butterfly. I couldn't do it. And then I had this mental block in my head that I cannot do butterfly. And it wasn't until maybe 10 years ago, I was 35 in a pool with my kids, where I just wanted to try butterfly. And apparently I'm really good at butterfly. I'm like, I just wasted, 20 years not swimming the stroke that I'm actually good at. So
it's really fun.
Yeah, that's my best stroke is breaststroke, but butterfly is my favorite by far.
Right.
And then out of the Three Musketeers, who's your favorite? Who did you want to be?
I actually wanted to be Aramis. But there've been bunches of like Three Musketeer auditions and things coming around over the years in London. I've never been for it. I've never ever gone for it. It never came up. You sometimes you're not available. Sometimes you're doing something as gets cast, and then that opportunity's gone. And also, it wasn't. That was just what I did as a kid, and then it didn't totally define what happened afterwards. Although I did get a job when I was at drama school. I got a job choreographing the fights for Hamlet for Mark Rylance, who was doing Hamlet at the Globe. And Mark had done Hamlet. He was one of the youngest people to do Hamlet at the RSC. And he'd done it with an actor called Alexis Denisov. And they choreographed it. And he wanted to sort of reproduce that fight. So I got an old videotape of their Hamlet and watched it. And he asked me if I could write down whatever choreography I could find and then re-choreograph the fight around that idea. So I did that. So when I was 19, I got to sit and watch Mark Rylance rehearse Hamlet at the Globe.
Wow.
As well as training at Lambda. I'd leave Lambda classes and go and teach Mark Rylance and Mark Lockyer, who played Laertes, the fight. And Mark said, you can sit and watch rehearsals if you like. So I watched Mark. Yeah. So I saw him play Hamlet. I don't even know how many times. It was very good. It was very helpful. He's a very nice man.
Mark Rylance in Bridge of Spies, the first, minute something on the screen, I was in the movie theater. I turned to my, I think I was with my wife. I was watching. I said, if Mark doesn't win an Oscar for this, I do not know acting. It was just breathtaking. That's the level that I'll always aspire to get to, and probably never will. But that's so
he has a real talent. I mean, I saw him play Cleopatra at the Globe, the first thing I ever saw him do, and he makes the Globe, which is obviously open air theater, he makes it feel totally intimate, like really small. Like it's an incredible talent he has, but it's also a craft. Like he talked to me about that, about yes, there are talents, but there are processes or there are tricks that you can do, and those things can be learned to a degree. But we're all different. So Mark is Mark. And I remember thinking at the time, God, I wish he did more film and TV so people could see how good he is.
Yeah.
And he did a film called Intimacy, which I think came out in about 2001, or something like 2002. And I remember watching that, and there's a bit where he's looking out the window, he's waiting for the lady to come and visit him, and he's just watching and watching. I remember thinking, oh man, how can you make just looking out of a window seem so compelling and well acted and genuine and real and relaxed and natural? That feels like, what is it? I wonder what it said in the script, So I half the time, people who I admire, I watch them and I think, I don't know how they did it. And often sometimes finding out how they work doesn't even help you. But it's certainly inspiring to try to be more truthful or different or interesting or, I suppose, more truthful. Yeah.
So what was, if you can, give one example of what are the things that you talked to Mark about and you were able to utilize as an actor afterwards in terms of craft?
Well, we talked about like when you get a script and you work on it on your own, about when you read a line of dialogue and you read it and you think, oh, that doesn't feel natural, that doesn't feel real. And then you read it again. And this is the studying of the script that people refer to. Often I think it's very quiet contemplation that is where the real benefit comes from. Reading the line and connect to it for yourself and saying it and feeling like you've got a connection to what you feel is truthful and that it's a small thing. And then Mark said he'll take that way of saying it privately and small and he'll try and enlarge it, but feel for himself the connection to it. And then he'll try and do it like throwing a small dart, then throwing a larger dart. Then can I do it throwing a javelin? And can I still keep that feeling of connection I have when I'm reading it really small? I mean, that's Mark's, that at the time was Mark's discussion with me about, or little nugget he shared with me about how he feels. I don't know if that relates, if anyone else that makes sense to them, but it certainly makes sense to me. There's something one of my drama teachers said to me, which was, there's a difference between finding an accent and finding a voice and placing a voice, which might sound like complete gibberish to people, but I like doing accents. I like doing impressions, and I like trying to transform, and I like trying to make it really hard as well. But I kind of keep that thing that Mark said, and the thing that Colin Cook, who's the drama teacher from Lambda, said to me about finding it rather than placing it. Because anybody can do a showy voice, which is a showy, that isn't in your body, that isn't connected to something that's truthful. And I don't mean, when I say truthful, I don't mean something that's very serious. I don't mean something that's very, I don't want to misconstrue it and make it sound like it's a sort of unachievable, ethereal thing, because it's not. I don't think it is. I think it's connecting to something truthful that means something to you, and finding a voice is really a physical thing. I think some people said to me, you're really different. You speak really differently to when you play Bill. And I was like, yeah, because he's called Big Bill, and he comes from somewhere, and he has a certain stature and a weight. And I like trying to keep myself light at work, because I'm often, like you've seen, I have played quite a few dark things where people are quite wrung out and they're anxious and they're going through something traumatic. And actually, if you're doing that on set, it's really, really tiring. If you think you've got to be tense and serious and concentrate all day, that's just exhausting. And I've done that. I've been through that. And actually, what I found best for me is if I can just talk to my crewmates and my castmates and my directors and mess around and stay playful, keep making jokes. I don't want to be closed off and in it's all about me and in my process. I want to be connected to people and making gags, and like switch and say, I'll tell you the end of that joke. I've just got to do this take where I'll go and murder this guy, and then we can talk about that. And it's the same on stage. I'd much rather be able to be in the wings, chatting and goofing around and be like, just do this and then come back. Like, it's a trick. It's a magic trick. And yes, there's a focus, but the playfulness and the lightness is, I think, the most important thing to get to be real in the moment when you make the illusion of whoever it is you're bringing. So I've forgotten what your question was.
No, I did as well. We're moving on.
You're asking about Mark, I think. I think you're asking about Mark.
I was talking about what works for you as an actor, and you've answered it. So I
saw him. I watched a rehearsal with Heat where he did the "Get Thee to a Nunnery" scene, which is a scene between Hamlet and Ophelia, where he rejects her, and he has this line where he says, "You nickname God's creatures." He's talking about women wearing makeup, and he's being really awful to Ophelia, and he's pushing her away. And there was one rehearsal where I saw Mark do that incredibly quietly, and then literally the next time he did it, it was so big and loud, and I couldn't tell you which one was more ugly or terrifying, but I was just gobsmacked at how playful he seemed, how light he seemed, and not just him. And I'm really sorry, I can't remember the name of the actress who was in the scene with him. It was 19 years ago, but 20 years ago. It was just that just watching that was a really good lesson. It was like, be brave. I did a TV show. I've done a few TV shows actually with a lovely actor called David Ajala, who is currently in the new Star Trek series. And David and I were doing a show called Beowulf, and we did the read through, and nobody really wanted to do the read through. The director was like, let's get this out of the way. And I was like, oh no, come on, it's going to be really fun. No, okay. I'm really nervous. And David got to his part, and everyone's kind of mumbling a bit into the script. Unless somebody guides a read through and says, guys, let's have some fun, people generally feel quite tense and like they might get judged. Well, anyway, we got to David's part in the read through, and he's playing a king. And David stood up. He just stood up and banged his hands on the table and was like, I've arrived. And everyone went, whoa. And he's like that on set. He's playful. And he told me he got that from Heath Ledger, because he did The Dark Knight with Heath Ledger. And he said, Heath just said, keep playing. And I was like, yeah, I've heard this. I hear this again and again and again from all the people I admire. Stay loose. But of course, when you're coming into the profession and you're playing whatever part you're playing, it's very easy to think you can't do that, and sometimes there isn't time when you're shooting. There isn't time to do, but just try and retain it in whatever capacity you can, because it really, really helps. David was great. It's always lovely being on set with him.
That's very cool. I remember reading Michael Caine's book, and he was saying, if you have a chance to not do an accent, don't do an accent, because doing an accent takes away, kind of limits your performance by 10 or 20 or whatever percent. And I love doing accents. For me, it's a part of a role. When I read something, immediately the physicality of the person, kind of how they walk, what they feel like, and how they speak, all of these things just kind of start coming, and I want to do that because that's how I connect. But I'm a Russian-speaking person. That's my first language. So I had to do scenes where I was speaking Russian. In some scenes, no issues. In some scenes, I felt, oops, okay, I didn't say that word correctly, or the pronunciation was wrong, and I was out of it. And that was that part where it was like, no, wrong accent. People are going to say something different. When you're doing accents, do you ever find yourself watching, or it's I'm here, this is just how Bill talks or how Bay
walks? I mean, that's the watching thing is an interesting thing. Well, it's something we got warned about at drama school. Again, Colin Cook, who was the head of drama there, said, you've got to keep your third eye on, because it's going to keep you safe. You can't go into something and be so totally consumed that you're not safe. And he told us an example of an actress who'd ran off stage in a play, and she'd run right through a white picket fence, and she'd cut her legs, and she was off stage, and she had no idea she'd done it.
Wow.
And he said, you guys have got to stay safe. And look, more than ever, if you're doing action sequences, and action sequences on film is one thing, right? It's phenomenal. You film it in short bursts. It's repetitive. There's all kinds of challenges there. That's one thing. If you do action sequences on stage, like the previews is one thing, press night, the amount of adrenaline that a cast, doesn't matter how experienced you are, has on press night is phenomenal. So if you do that and you've got to do a sword fight or something that could be dangerous on stage, you've got to be able to have this eye watching. So the eye, and I don't discriminate between the eye that watches your accent and the eye that watches whether or not you're sticking a sword into the right place or space at a particular time. I don't think I don't think it's helpful to sort of think we have to hide from the observance, and that if we are observing, we're somehow not in it, or it's not truthful, because it's monitoring what we do, whether we feel, we watch, or we just intuit. Like, it's a weird dance where you do lots and lots of work, and then I can only really take care of my part. If you and I are doing a scene now, I can't really worry about what you've done to prep. I hope you've learned your lines, and I've learned my lines. And when we get to do it, I'm hopefully going to be able to, we're going to have a conversation. But you might not feel that you can play. You might feel like, I've learned it one way, I want it one way. Now I could come in and think, that's ridiculous. That's terrible. That's an opinion that is irrelevant. Like, if you want to do it your one way, that's the way you want to do it. I can to a degree play my side. Now, sometimes you get to work and you've done all that prep, and your eyes watching, and your co-star will do something that is different to what you might have imagined. And then you retort with something that, in a way that you hadn't conceived or studied or thought about. And then you find that it's working, and you don't know why it's different, but you feel, and then you're feeling it, and it. I had a couple of scenes like that with Tom Weston Jones on Warrior, very emotional, high fraught scenes, where you finish and you think, wow, that was completely different, and it felt amazing, and you feel like something else took over. But that feels like magic. Now, it might not be better than when you're doing it and your eyes going, you said the vowel wrong. You said, I playing Bill, I had so many notes. I worked with this accent coach called Maeve Diamond, who's from Ireland, and she's fabulous, and we really enjoyed working together and breaking it down. But like she said, don't get obsessed with the intonation, and don't get obsessed with getting it right. And I mean, Michael Caine saying that, yeah, okay, that's one opinion. And maybe for Michael, that's true. And there probably is truth in that. But say that to Peter Sellers, like, you know what I mean? Like, or anyone else who frequently does that. I mean, I understand exactly what Michael Caine is saying, but I would say, having played a lot of characters myself where I do different accents, I do then crave doing something that's closer to mine. I did an audition this week for a character that's set in the northwest of England. I'm from the northeast, but because I come from Hartlepool, sometimes at the end of my accent there's a little lilt, which can make it sound like I'm from Liverpool. Sometimes it sounds a little bit like I'm from the West Coast, but I'm not. I'm from the north. But then sometimes when I'm north, people they think I sound south because I've been living in London for 20 years. Anthony Hopkins said this thing about accents, which was, people's accents merge, they change. Don't worry about being overly prescriptive and specific. People might criticize the performance. Like, a guy said to me, I really like you playing Bill. Your accent's pretty good. And I said, oh, thanks. He said, it goes a bit East Coast, West Coast, though. And I said, that's because Bill's mum was from the East, but his dad was from the West, and he grew up in the house, but he's also been in America for about 20 years. But yeah, and he went, really? And I went, yeah, that's right, yeah. It says that in my book, in my notes. Well, it does now anyway. But people's accents merge. People like to have a strong opinion on whether or not that is truthful or not. And I think as actors, it's really easy to get tense, over obsessed with being perfect. I come from this little town called Hartlepool, and it's about 45 minutes to an hour's drive of a city called Newcastle in the northeast, where people who come from Newcastle are called Geordies, and it's a very broad accent. Now, people down south, when they meet me, go, oh, you're a Geordie. And I'm like, I come from nearly an hour away from there, and I don't really sound like that at all, but to those people I do. And like, I don't mind, it doesn't bother me, but like, all my friends always, when they call me up, they go, "All right, Kieran, all right, mate." And some people, when I make new friends, they do it, and they go, "I'm sorry, I don't know why I do that." And I'm like, that's all right. I don't know. It's a funny thing people do. And so when I play an accent, so let's talk about Bill, because it probably helps to be specific. Yeah. Bill, when he talks to Leary, I always wanted him to feel more like, if I call my mum, my northeastern accent comes back. So when he's talking to Leary, and when he's talking to Penelope, he does this little thing where he slightly merges. Not just because Bill has an accent that I can play with and do that with, but because Bill is a manipulator. He's a liar.
Yep.
A lot of actors can merge to people please. You know, whether that's conscious or subconscious. Well, not just actors, but people can merge accents to make another person feel comfortable, or copy body language and all kinds of things. Yeah. I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. Some people might say, "Oh, look at." Someone said to me once when I went back home from drama school, "Listen to him saying his T's," because people just drop their T's where I'm from, and I was like, "That's a weird thing to say," but I guess I just sounded like I was talking posh. But I enjoy changing Bill's emphasis depending on who he's with. Just for me, I don't tell anyone I'm doing it. That's my thing. I've discovered that I don't need to tell people the detail I'm messing around with, because otherwise I'll hurt their head. Yeah, that's because I'm obsessive, not because it's necessary for the job. I wouldn't say that's necessary to be an actor, but that is what I'm like. So
yeah, interesting. I loved, going back to Warrior, I loved when you said that you really enjoy kind of making the Lee's character, Thomas, you really enjoy making him laugh before takes, which I thought was funny.
It's really me. I have to say that's not actually, that's a mean thing to do, because Tom as well is a guy who's also working on his process. And listen, there were times when I absolutely left him alone, and we've got a really great friendship, and it's very similar to Bill and Lee. The best bits of Bill and Lee.
Not the manipulative parts. Yeah.
No, in that we really recognized on a day-to-day basis whether each of us needed backing up, a bit of space, or listening to when we're blocking or working something out and saying, I think this is important or that's important. Like really, really lovely working with him. But yes, given an opportunity, I will try and make a joke, mainly to kind of like keep it playful, but also just because it's just a nicer environment to work in.
Yeah.
But of course, like if we've got something serious, I think you've always got to be conscious to be respectful of someone else's time and process. Otherwise, it's just...
Talking about that, and here's from the Facebook group. I love our Facebook group on. There are a couple of Facebook groups on Facebook.
Yep.
That are specifically Warrior, and some of the questions are from folks for you. So I'm gonna, since we're talking about.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll try and give shorter answers, because otherwise we'll just end up chatting, and it'll be like sprawling anecdotes that. Short answers, yeah. Is that better?
Whatever answers you want to give are perfect.
All right. Okay.
So Raghu Sitharaman says the dynamic between you and Officer Richard Lee, played by Tom Weston Jones, is so good. Will we get to see your character and Richard Lee make amends? And I mean, we can't spoil anything that happens in episode 10.
Yeah.
So I don't know how you can answer that, but I promised I was going to read the question, so there you go. We
used to joke on set that Bill and Lee were going to end up living in the same house like Bert and Ernie from Sesame Street. But I can't answer that, because that would be a spoiler for episode 10, or it would give you an indication of the narrative that might happen. But what I would say is, from Bill's perspective, that Lee initially represents everything he hates, or it's just the worst possible person to put next to Bill, because Bill is a liar and a manipulator, and Lee is a truth teller, and Lee is like a bomb next to him, constantly watching, or like a child that's going to suddenly tell everybody your secrets when you don't want them to. Yeah. So, but he also kind of represents, I think, Bill recognizes how far his own personal moral compass has shifted because of Lee, and how much damage the system has done. And so Lee, I like to think Lee has been having an awakening effect on Bill.
I think so.
And it's pulling him closer towards him sorting his act out.
Yeah.
That doesn't answer your question, because I can't answer it, so sorry.
Right. The one thing that we can mention, and it's not like I have no insider information, but the one thing that we can mention is that we saw the preview for episode 10. So we do see Lee handing in his badge.
That's right.
So we do see that, and that maybe answers it a little bit. So Derek is asking a question. How you feel the character of Bill has evolved over the past 2 seasons? You've answered a little bit of it now. And in which scenes, if any, did you ever personally feel at odds with the actions that Bill took? Yeah, no shorter answer to that one.
When you meet him, he at the very beginning of the series, he's given the job of being sergeant of the Chinatown squad, which is the worst job for him possible, because he goes to Chinatown for his vices. That's where he goes. And Jonathan Tropper and I talked about this, and he said, look, Bill might be a drunk and a gambler, and he might bend the law and do these things, but the one thing you won't do is violate his marriage vows. So that was really helpful for me, in the respect that I looked at him as a guy that had a drink problem and and a gambling problem, and more apparently maybe a gambling problem to everybody. And I would say Bill knows he has a gambling problem, but Bill absolutely doesn't think he has a drink problem. And so all of his lying and manipulating, he's a guy who is suffering. And I wanted that to kind of quietly rumble along. It's not... I asked them early on about what they wanted me to do, because the character was called Big Bill. And I was like, what do you want? Do you want me to lift weights? I had a little bit of time. I was like, do you want me to get stacked? Do you want me to be another fighter for Assam? Or what is the function of the character? And they went, he's just Big Bill. So I said, yeah, but that could mean anything. It could mean stature. It could mean, something you don't see. It could mean lots of things.
Yeah, is there anything you can do to prep that before the show?
Well, I don't know. I mean, there's all kinds of clever things they can do with CGI. But I took it that it was stature, and it was more about influence and impact. Mm-hmm. But also, this is a guy that is not well, and he's suffering and he's going through things. And so I basically said, look, I'm going to eat loads of food and I'm going to put weight on. So I deliberately, and I said, I want to grow a beard. They wanted me to be clean shaven. And I said, look, I'd really rather have a beard. And then what I'd like to do is just like, you see this guy getting worse and worse and worse slowly. And Brad Callum-Kane in season 2 was like, dude, your beard is getting out of control. I was like, good. I want to be wreck. There are definitely takes I did where I think he's more of a wreck than perhaps they wanted me to be seen. Like there's a time when I have a go at Lee in the lockers. And at that moment when he says, it was you, Bill, it was you. I definitely did a take where I was like basically having a complete nervous breakdown, but then covering it up or trying to go for that anyway. Bill is constantly aware of his shifting moral compass and that the line is shifting and shifting. And whether or not I'm at odds with any of it, I mean, I'm not sure what that means really. Does that mean what I disagree with in him?
Yeah.
Do I? Because I think, I don't think Bill knows he's a racist. He's a racist person. And he is being racist. I mean, I don't agree with the behavior. I can't condone his behavior, but I know that he absolutely does not want to kill Jack Damon. He would much rather manipulate Leary into killing Damon for him than actually do it. And then when it gets to the point and Leary says, he's going to come and kill your kids if you don't do it, and I'm not going to do it, Bill has to do it. And this is something I talked about with the guys about the history of who Bill was. He's killed people before. He's killed people in the war. He's been a cop. Yeah. But he's never done that so explicitly what he did. And he knows he's out of control. He knows he's completely wrecked. So I hope that goes some way to answering your question. He's having a huge rock bottom right in front of everybody. Yeah. And Lee has been the last, after his wife and kids left, he's been the last tangible thing next to him that's probably going to pull him. And somebody asked me the other day, what do you think was going to happen to Bill in season 3? And I said, I hope he gets worse. I hope he gets darker. What I'd like to see is like him try and get better and try and sober up and try and be better. Yeah. But it's hard to do that. And so I wouldn't want it to be like a sort of rosy thing where suddenly Bill's, I don't think that would be real. Yeah. But then that's me judging it. I don't know. I'd just love it to see what they come up with, the guys. We do try and influence them. We do sort of say, it'd be really nice if Bill went to Mexico or...
yeah. Well, episode 6 was awesome.
Well, we all want to be in Western, so we're all like, can we all go on a Western next year?
Yeah.
Can we ride horses?
Absolutely. Derek also wanted to know, in episode 9, you watched it for the 4th time. By now, it's probably more than that. So in episode 9, ask Kieran if he accidentally got hurt during the 2 seasons of the show, and if so, how?
Did I accidentally get hurt? I can't remember now. Is the answer to that? Okay. I had during the whole of season 1, I had a torn psoas muscle in my left hip glute. Yeah. Which was incredibly painful all the time. Mm-hmm. And it really didn't help that I committed to the idea that I was going to put more weight on for the role. And then being, I'm 40 now, so like losing weight used to be really easy. And I thought it'll be really easy to put weight on for a character and lose it. And it was not as fun as I hoped it would be. I cut my hands on things. I didn't get any injuries like I have in the past. I've broken ribs on set before and I've done stuff, but I also broke my back a few years ago in an accident, and so I have a spinal fusion. So I'm very careful about what action I do, and of course I do some of the stuff. But Brett and the team were very careful to look after my personal injury and make sure I'm okay. And so Mark who was my stunt double.
Mm.
There's a scene where Tom Weston-Jones and I have a disagreement in the police station, and Mark actually took a hit from me from Tom. Now, Tom Weston-Jones, before we did Warrior, played Hector in a BBC TV adaptation of Troy, and was stacked. He put so much muscle on, but Tom also used to play rugby. So Tom can really tackle. And there's a bit where he tackles Bill and then dumps me on the ground. And my stuntman, Mark, he took such a bad hit on that. Tom's very strong. So thankfully, I was okay. I think I was okay. I was a little bit, I had to do a lot of running for the opening of season 2. You'll see I'm running after a debt collector, and then I pull him off the wall and we lie on the ground.
Yeah.
We filmed so much running all over the Chinatown set. It was going to be like an extended sequence, and it was sort of punctuated with me swearing like every 6 yards or so. So it was like, and there was like a dog chasing me and everything. Yeah. But the guys thought, I think it was too humorous in the end, so they cut it down. But I did about 4 hours of running. So that's nothing compared to what everyone else did.
Yeah, but I love that at the end, when Bill is laying there, he's like, oh God, you made me do this. I'm really unhappy with you.
No, because I punched him and said, that's for making me run. That was an ad lib. That was an ad lib.
Oh, that was? Awesome.
Yes, because I said that's for making me run, because I just spent about 4 hours running on cobbled streets. Listen, I love my job and I don't mind, but it was great. You always know when you film that you don't get to edit it. You as an actor, you go to work and you can really do homework. You have to do your homework and you film what you film. But really you're giving like a palette to the directors and the editors to make the thing. I have a lot of friends. I have some friends who say they don't watch what they make because it's too painful for them to watch it. And I understand that. I do get that. But I watch what I make because I'm not the only person making it, and I don't know what they're going to do. And I'm always excited and pleased to see what people have put together.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Sam Jackson, when the people asked him if he watches what he's in, he's like, yeah, and this is Sam Jackson. He said, fuck yes, this is why I make the movies, so I can watch myself on them. Absolutely, I'm doing it.
I always wanted to be in Deadwood, and I always wanted to be in a Western. I used to watch loads of Westerns and stuff, so why would I not watch when I'm the sheriff of Chinatown? And he's the sheriff, like that. Yeah. I go to work, I've got a gun holster. Yeah. And when I have rehearsals, I always make sure I've got my holster and my gun and all my props because I like to use them in the scenes. And I like it as well. This is something that comes from like doing stuff at drama school where you've got a sword, and they will say, make sure you wear it because you're going to find out what you hit with it when you walk around. And so it's the same thing with any kind of prop you have on a set as well. But wearing a holster, we're literally playing cowboys and Indians or, cops and robbers. And it really is. I think it should be like that. You keep it playful, keep it light.
Yeah. And I heard you mention that you, as a part of your acting process, you love the props and you love things that you can actually, touch and you can work with that allow you to live in the scene. I certainly understand that.
It's a joke as well. It's also a joke. I'm ruined without my props.
Okay.
It's a joke about being exposed. Like, if you don't have props, what do you do? Well, oh God, no! I feel really vulnerable. Like, you should feel vulnerable at work. I think actors should get themselves to a position where they do feel vulnerable and creative, because I think that's when the best stuff happens. But yeah, if you've got in real life, people are normally doing things. You're doing things, and it can really free up from it can help with the naturalism when you've got stuff that feels quite intense and stuff that feels very direct and maybe very written. I'm not saying it's not, things aren't well written, but like, it's just, watch people in real life. You just took a drink and
exactly. This is my prop.
Yeah. Now you got to think about that though, because if you're in a rehearsal and you're shooting on camera,
I know
you got to think about, and then you've got to repeat it and from every angle. So and then also when you put it down, you do it on a word, then you're going to have to do ADR. Like there's things that, like, I mean, you can really mess your head up with like, how many things can I have to think about, and how many, like, what juggles 10 balls, I'm going to add 4 more. But there's a scene where Tom and I think it's in episode 2, where he comes to see me at the locker. Yes, it is, because I'm changing at the locker, getting out of my muddy clothes, having fallen on the ground. And the camera follows us from the locker room to the corridor, to the police station, to my desk, to the coffee, to back to my desk. And we did it about 8 times. And it's all choreographed. Yeah. But we did that with Dale Rodkin, who's our Steadicam B camera operator. The guys, you really get to know your camera operators and your team really, really well, and your focus puller too as well. Archie did an amazing job, because if we're not in sync, if we don't know where each other are, then it doesn't work. But if we have an over awareness of where they are, you will see that on the camera.
Yep.
You've got to hide that you're aware, that you know, you've got to hide that you're monitoring. And that, for me, is the most exciting part of my job. It's like hiding. How well can you hide that you're actually thinking a million things? Yeah. So if you add on top of that you have to genuinely feel everything, I mean, it's like, keep that third eye watching, like make friends with it, I'd say, you know.
Interesting. And then, one thing that you've mentioned on the Instagram Live that people may not know, and you may get in trouble for, is that you said you kept your phone in your boot.
Oh, no. Yeah, well, I've done an awful lot of jobs where for some reason, I've had very long boots. I've had very high boots. And they're really good for just sticking any kind of phone just down there, hopefully off or on silent. You don't really, you shouldn't really have your phone on set and distract, but it is the modern age, and sometimes. I mean, I remember having when we were filming the opening of episode 6, season 1. And it's the Chinatown Parade. And I think on my Instagram, there's a video of us back behind the scenes filming that. This is way too much talk about a phone on set. The reason I had my phone is because I was having to organize flights home. And I couldn't get it organized. And I was actually on hold to a large airline company trying to sort out a simple thing of getting a flight. And it was... So that's my excuse. Anyway. Don't mention the phone, man.
I can just imagine you're on the phone with a airline operator. It's like, excuse me, I need to do a tape. I'll be right back with you.
That's exactly what I said. There was a moment when I said to him, he said to me, "I'm really sorry, sir, about your inquiry. I'm sorry we're having trouble, but I don't really know what I was trying to do." He said, but I might have to place you on hold for a moment and you might have to wait. I said, well, just so I can let you know, if you hear some loud, roaring, riotous crowd and you have to wait for a bit, that's just me putting you on hold. And he was like, okay. Like, you're going to have to just, I will come back, but you might hear some explosions.
Yeah.
Everything's fine.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Kieran, it's been a joy. I want to talk to you for 3 more hours, but your wife, your cat, and everybody is going to be mad at me. So happy, I think they say Happy Christmas in UK, right? Or is it Merry Christmas?
We say both.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Whatever you like.
Yeah, Merry
Happy
Christmas.
Merry.
And I know people are going to be watching us from all over the world. So however you say it, folks, I really, really enjoyed my time. I'm looking forward to watching at 10 tomorrow. And then, talking to Joanna and Perry next week. So, Kieran, thank you. I really,
My pleasure. Thanks, Alan. It's lovely to chat.
Thank you. And everybody, please stay safe. Please, take this holiday season and do what you can to make it as merry as possible, because the 2020 really is forcing us to come up with our own sense of joy, and let's do that and end the year safely. So thanks, everybody. Okay.